The emergency lights in the Galactic Council chamber flashed red for the third time that month. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats, their various forms of distress clear despite their alien features. Some trembled, others released stress pheromones, and a few simply stared at the holographic display with what could only be described as hopelessness. The display showed another world dying. The planet, Valoria Prime, home to 6 billion souls, was under attack. Massive organic ships descended through the atmosphere like locusts, and the feed cut to static as the last communication satellite went dark. It had taken the Cathari swarm only 4 hours to silence an entire civilization. Ambassador Theclon of the Valorian remnant collapsed in his seat. His blue skin had turned pale gray. "That was our homeworld," he whispered, his translator making his grief understandable to all present. 18 billion of our people lived on worlds you all promised to defend. Now only 12 million remain on our colony ships. The council chambers filled with uncomfortable silence. They had promised much and delivered nothing. The Cathari had appeared at the edge of known space 6 months ago, and since then, 23 worlds had fallen. Every combined fleet sent against them had been destroyed or forced to retreat. The swarm consumed everything in its path, breaking down matter to fuel its endless ships and feeding its hive mind with the knowledge of those it devoured. High Chancellor Mordain, a towering crystalline being who had led the council for 3 centuries, spoke with a voice that resonated like struck crystal. The 5th Defense Fleet has been destroyed. The Cathari advance continues toward the Pelion core systems. Our projections indicate that within 2 standard months, 40 more worlds will fall. Within a year. He paused, his structure dimming. Within a year, this council may cease to exist. Panic erupted. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded retreat to fortified core worlds. Others called for surrender negotiations. A few simply wept for their doomed civilizations. "Order!" Mordain's voice rang out. "We must maintain unity. If we fragment now, the swarm will consume us piece by piece." Unity? Ambassador Krell, a reptilian warrior from the Saurian Empire, slammed his clawed hand on his console. "Unity has brought us nothing but defeat. Our finest warriors cannot breach their bioships. Our most powerful weapons barely scratch their hulls. What good is unity against extinction?" As the arguing intensified, a small chime indicated someone had requested to speak. The sound was so quiet that it took several moments for the chamber to settle. All eyes turned to the human section, a modest platform near the back of the chamber. Humans were a relatively new species to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 70 years ago. They had been granted observer status, but rarely spoke at council sessions. Admiral Rebecca Chen stood up. She was a small woman by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall. With gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her dark blue uniform was crisp and plain compared to the elaborate garments worn by other species. She looked tired, with lines around her eyes that suggested many sleepless nights. "The human delegation wishes to make an announcement," she said, her voice calm and measured. Mordain's structure flickered with what might have been surprise. "Ambassador Chen, while we value Earth's presence on this council, we are discussing matters of galactic survival. Unless humanity has ships or weapons to contribute, perhaps this is not the time." "That is precisely why I am speaking, Chancellor," Chen replied. "Humanity is deploying a vessel to engage the Cathari swarm. The USS Blackstar will intercept their advance within 48 hours. The chamber fell silent again. But this time, the silence was different. Confusion rippled through the assembled representatives. Several checked their translation devices, certain they had misheard. Krell was the first to speak, his voice dripping with contempt. "One ship? The humans are sending one ship against a force that has destroyed entire battle fleets? Is this a joke?" "It is not," Chen said simply. Ambassador Theklan, still gray with grief, spoke more gently. Admiral Chen, we appreciate any support, but humanity's fleet consists of perhaps 200 vessels. Your technology, while adequate, is not advanced enough to challenge the Cathari. Sending one ship is sending it to die. We have lost too many brave souls already. Chen nodded slowly. I understand your concern. Humanity's public fleet is indeed modest, and our technology appears conventional. However, the USS Blackstar is not part of our public fleet. It has been classified since its construction began 20 years ago. A secret weapon? Mordane's structure brightened with interest. What capabilities does it possess? In quote. You will see soon enough, Chen replied. I am not authorized to discuss technical specifications. What I can tell you is this. The USS Blackstar was designed for one purpose, to ensure that humanity would never be helpless in the face of existential threat. Captain Sarah Kovac and her crew have trained for this moment. Krell laughed, a harsh barking sound. 20 years of secret construction? Your species has been in space for less than a century. What could you possibly have built that our ancient civilizations have not already perfected? Chen met his gaze steadily. Something we learned from our history. Ambassador Krell, humans have fought wars on our homeworld for thousands of years. We have studied destruction in ways that species who achieved peace earlier than us have not. We know what it takes to stop an enemy that cannot be reasoned with. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some representatives seemed offended by the implication. Others looked thoughtful. A few appeared worried. Mordane raised a crystalline hand for silence. Admiral Chen, this council appreciates humanity's willingness to help. However, we cannot in good conscience allow you to sacrifice your people on a futile gesture. The Cathari have proven unstoppable. With respect, Chancellor. You misunderstand, Chen said. This is not a sacrifice. This is an intervention. The USS Blackstar will stop the Cathari advance. How long it takes depends on how many of them choose to fight. She reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small data chip. I have been authorized to transmit the Blackstar's current location to your sensor networks. You will be able to observe its operations. I suggest you watch carefully. Chen placed the chip on her console and transmitted the data. Across the chamber, displays lit up, showing a region of space near the Jupiter system in Sol's outer reaches. Long-range sensors that had been pointed at that area showed nothing unusual, just the standard electromagnetic signatures of a gas giant and its moons. Then, as they watched, something changed. A massive energy signature appeared. Unlike anything in their databases, it was moving, accelerating to faster than light speeds, with a power output that made their sensors recalibrate twice. What is that? Someone whispered. Chen allowed herself a small, grim smile. That, representatives, is the USS Blackstar, and it has just entered the war. Captain Sarah Kovac stood on the bridge of the USS Blackstar, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the main view screen. The journey from Jupiter to the Valoria system had taken 36 hours at maximum sustainable faster-than-light speed. Now they had arrived, and the scene before them was exactly as grim as the intelligence reports had suggested. Valoria Prime burned below them. The planet's blue and green surface was marred by spreading gray patches where the Cathari had already begun their consumption. Bioships, massive organic constructs that looked like a nightmare fusion of insects and deep-sea creatures, crawled across the planet's surface. In orbit, 18 Cathari capital ships held position. Each one, over 3 kilometers long. Captain, we're being scanned, reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb from the tactical station. He was a solid man with steady hands. Exactly the kind of officer Kovac wanted at weapons control. Multiple targeting locks. They know we're here. Good, Kovac said. Helm, take us to full combat speed. heading directly toward their formation center. The helmsman, a young woman named Sarah Park, didn't hesitate. "Aye, Captain. Full combat speed. Direct approach." The blackstar surged forward. The ship was enormous by human standards, nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, but it moved with unexpected grace. Its hull was a dark metallic gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange angular patterns covered its surface, and 3 massive structures along its spine hummed with barely contained energy. On the view screen, the Cathari ships began moving into combat formation. They had fought dozens of species and consumed the knowledge of billions. Their tactical databases contained strategies from 1,000 conquered civilizations. They knew how to respond to any threat, or so they thought. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Lieutenant Chen. "It's the Cathari hive mind." "Put it through," Kovac ordered. A sound filled the bridge that made several crew members wince. It was not exactly speech, more like thousands of voices attempting to speak as one, creating a discordant chorus that human ears were not meant to hear. The translation software struggled to make sense of it. "Human vessel, you are alone. You are weak. Your species will be consumed. Your knowledge will feed us. Your matter will fuel our growth. Surrender and die quickly, or resist and suffer. The choice is yours, but the outcome is inevitable." Kovac waited a moment before responding. When she spoke, her voice was calm and cold. "This is Captain Sarah Kovac of the United Earth ship Blackstar. You have invaded Galactic Council space. You have destroyed innocent civilizations. You have murdered billions. On behalf of humanity and our allies, I am here to stop you. You will retreat immediately, or you will be destroyed." The hive mind's response was something that might have been laughter. "One ship? You send one ship against 18 of ours? Your species understands nothing of power. We have consumed thousands of races. You will be one more." "I gave you a chance," Kovac said quietly. She nodded to Webb. "Weapons free. Execute attack pattern Omega-7. What happened next would be studied by military strategists across the galaxy for generations to come." The Blackstar's main weapons came online. 3 massive gravitational lances, humanity's most closely guarded secret, charged with power drawn from the ship's micro-singularity reactors. These were not conventional weapons. They did not fire energy or projectiles. Instead, they manipulated space-time itself, creating focused beams of gravitational force strong enough to crush matter into impossibly dense points. The first lance fired. A beam of distorted space, invisible to normal sight but creating rainbow distortions as it passed, struck the nearest Cathari capital ship. The organic vessel's shields, designed to disperse energy and deflect physical projectiles, did nothing. The gravitational beam punched through the ship's center mass and kept going. In seconds, a 3-kilometer warship collapsed inward on itself, crushed into a sphere barely 50 meters across. Then that sphere imploded further, creating a brief artificial black hole that consumed the compressed matter before evaporating in a flash of radiation. The second and third lances fired before the Cathari could react. 2 more capital ships simply ceased to exist, replaced by brief points of infinite density. Multiple launches detected. Webb reported, his voice steady despite what they had just witnessed. "The Cathari are firing everything they have." The view screen filled with incoming fire. Thousands of biomissiles, each carrying enough explosive force to level a city. Plasma beams hot enough to vaporize steel. Living projectiles that could burrow through armor. It was enough firepower to destroy a standard fleet. The Blackstar's point defense systems engaged. These were not simple guns or lasers. Humanity had spent 2 decades developing quantum decoherence field projectors. Weapons that could disrupt the fundamental bonds holding matter together. Invisible spheres of quantum chaos expanded around the ship, and every projectile, every beam, every living weapon that entered those fields simply fell apart at the atomic level. The attack that should have destroyed the blackstar dissipated like smoke in the wind. Forward momentum maintained, Park reported. We're entering their formation. Kovac watched as the remaining 15 Cathari ships tried to adjust their tactics. They were spreading out, attempting to surround the human vessel. It was a sound strategy against most opponents. Against the blackstar, it was suicide. Deploy missile pods, Kovac ordered. Full spread. Panels along the blackstar's hull opened, revealing hundreds of launch tubes. What emerged looked like standard missiles, but each warhead contained a payload of self-replicating nanomachines programmed for one task: disassembly. The missiles streaked toward their targets, and even when the Cathari managed to destroy some with defensive fire, the nanoclouds released from the explosions simply continued toward the nearest ship. 4 more Cathari vessels fell as the nanoswarms ate through their hulls. The organic material that made up their armor, designed to regenerate from most damage, became fuel for the microscopic machines. The ships were literally taken apart, molecule by molecule. 11 remaining, Webb said. Captain, their formation is collapsing. They're attempting to retreat. Negative, Kovac said. Helm. Pursuit course. These ships participated in genocide. They don't get to run. The blackstar accelerated, its engines producing thrust through gravitic manipulation rather than conventional reaction mass. The remaining Cathari ships scattered in different directions, but the human vessel was faster. One by one, Kovac hunted them down. The gravitational lances fired again and again. The quantum fields consumed desperate attacks. The nanomissiles found their marks. There, 7 minutes after the battle had begun, it was over. 18 Cathari capital ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of exotic particles and fading energy signatures. The blackstar hung in orbit above Valoria Prime, its hull unmarked, its shields having never been truly tested. On the planet below, the Valorian survivors who had hidden in underground shelters emerged cautiously. Their sensors showed the impossible. The orbital battle group that had been destroying their world was gone. The bioships on the surface, cut off from the hive mind's orbital coordination, had become confused and sluggish. Kovac opened a channel to the planet. This is Captain Sarah Kovac of the USS Blackstar to Valorian survivors. The orbital threat has been neutralized. We are transmitting tactical data on the remaining ground forces to your military remnants. You're safe now. We're moving to the next system under attack. She didn't wait for a response. There were 14 more systems under immediate Cathari assault, and the Blackstar had work to do. As the ship turned toward its next destination, every major power in the galaxy watched through their long-range sensors. They had seen something they couldn't quite believe. A single human ship had just done what their combined fleets could not. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Krell stared at the sensor data in silence. His earlier contempt had been replaced by something else: fear. Admiral Chen sat quietly in her seat, watching the displays. She had known what the Blackstar could do. She had seen the test runs, watched the simulations, but seeing it in actual combat against a seemingly unstoppable enemy was different. She thought about what she had told the Council, about humanity's long history of warfare. It was true. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. They had studied war while other species had been studying peace. And when they finally reached the stars and saw the threats that existed in the galaxy, they had made a choice. Never again would humanity be helpless. Never again would they watch their world burn while waiting for someone else to save them. The USS Blackstar was proof of that choice. And its trail of annihilation had only just begun. The Cathari overmind had existed for 3,000 years. It had consumed 200 civilizations and absorbed the collective knowledge of trillions of beings. It had faced warriors, scientists, and desperate survivors wielding every weapon known to galactic space. It had never known defeat, until now. Deep within the swarm's primary hive structure, a massive bioconstruct floating in the darkness between stars, The Overmind processed the impossible data. 18 capital ships destroyed in 7 minutes. No damage to the enemy vessel. No successful hits. Complete annihilation. The loss of ships was insignificant. The swarm could grow more. The loss of the biomass and stored knowledge was regrettable, but manageable. What troubled the Overmind was something else entirely. It had encountered a force it did not understand. That was unacceptable. The Overmind sent commands rippling through the HiveMind network. 3 armadas, each consisting of over 100 capital ships and thousands of support vessels, altered their courses. Their new objective was singular: destroy the human vessel called Blackstar. The swarm would show these humans what happened to those who challenged the inevitable. Captain Kovac stood in the Blackstar's war room, studying a holographic display of the Callus Nebula. Her senior officers surrounded her, their faces showing the strain of 3 weeks of continuous combat. In that time, the Blackstar had engaged Cathari forces in 14 different systems. They had destroyed over 50 enemy capital ships and saved billions of lives. But the war was far from over. Intelligence has confirmed it, Commander Webb said, pointing to the display. 3 full armadas are converging on our position. Current estimates put their numbers at 320 capital ships, plus support craft. ETA is 4 hours. Lieutenant Park whistled softly. They really want us dead. Can we outrun them? Asked Chief Engineer David Okonkwo, a tall man whose accent revealed his Nigerian heritage. Jump to FTL and relocate? Kovac shook her head. The armadas are positioning themselves to cut off all escape routes. If we run, they'll pursue us directly to inhabited systems. We'd be leading them to civilians. Clue. So we fight, Webb said. It wasn't a question. We fight, Kovac confirmed. But not here. The Callus Nebula is a natural choke point. Dense gas clouds, electromagnetic interference, and gravitational anomalies from the neutron star at its center. It will limit their ability to coordinate and force them to approach through specific vectors. She manipulated the display, showing entry points into the nebula. We position here, at the junction of these 3 approach lanes. We can't cover all vectors, but we can make them pay for every meter of space. Okonkwo frowned. Captain, the nebula will also interfere with our systems. Our sensors will be degraded, and our communications will be spotty at best. I know, Kovac said. But we've trained for this. The Cathari rely on HiveMind coordination. Cut that coordination, force them into smaller tactical units, and they become less effective. We're turning their numbers into a disadvantage. She looked around at her officers. These were people she had served with for 5 years, training in secret while the galaxy went about its business. They had families back on Earth. They had lives they could be living. Instead, they were here, preparing to face an enemy that outnumbered them hundreds to 1. I won't lie to you, she said quietly. This is going to be the hardest fight of our lives. Some of us might not make it through. But those armadas cannot be allowed to reach the core systems. If we stop them here, we break the swarm's momentum. We show the galaxy that the Cathari can be beaten. What are our orders, Captain? Park asked. Kovac smiled grimly. We're going to show them why you don't corner a predator. 4 hours later, the USS Blackstar sat in the heart of the Callus Nebula, surrounded by swirling clouds of ionized gas that glowed in shades of purple and green. The nearby neutron star's gravity well-distorted space in ways that made conventional navigation hazardous. It was beautiful and deadly in equal measure. First contacts on long-range sensors, Park reported. They're entering the nebula from all 3 approach vectors. Kovac settled into her command chair. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. This is not a drill. We are engaging a superior force. But we have every advantage that matters. Trust your training. Trust your shipmates. Trust the Blackstar. Let's show them what humans can do. The Cathari came like a tide. Ships filled the nebula's entry points, moving with the terrible inevitability of a force that believed itself unstoppable. The bioships moved through the gas clouds, their organic sensors adapting to the interference. Engaging, Webb said calmly. The gravitational lances fired. In the confined space of the nebula approach lanes, the Cathari ships had limited room to maneuver. The first wave of fire caught 6 capital ships, crushing them instantly. The quantum decoherence fields activated, creating zones of molecular chaos that destroyed incoming fire and any ship foolish enough to enter them. But this time, the Cathari kept coming. Multiple hits on forward shields, Park reported as the ship shuddered. The battle was different from their previous engagements. Before, the Cathari had been cautious, testing the blackstar's capabilities. Now they were committed. They accepted losses as inevitable and kept pressing forward. For every ship the blackstar destroyed, 2 more took its place. They're trying to overwhelm our firing solutions, Webb said. Too many targets. Athena, take tactical control, Kovac ordered. Prioritize threats and maximize efficiency. The ship's artificial intelligence, a quantum computer network that spanned 3 decks, took direct control of the weapons systems. Athena could process combat data and make targeting decisions thousands of times faster than any human. The gravitational lances began firing in rapid sequence, each shot perfectly calculated for maximum effect. The nano-missile pods launched in waves. The quantum fields expanded and contracted in patterns that created kill zones where Cathari ships simply fell apart. The blackstar moved through the nebula like a dancer, using the gas clouds for cover and the gravitational anomalies to slingshot between positions. Hours passed. The battle became a test of endurance. The Cathari had numbers, but the blackstar had position and firepower. Every time the enemy tried to surround the human vessel, Kovac repositioned, using the nebula's terrain to negate their advantage. Engineering to bridge? Okonkwo's voice came through, strained but steady. Reactor output at 115%. We're running hot, but the containment fields are holding. How long can we maintain this? Kovac asked. Honestly, Captain? We're in uncharted territory. The reactors were designed for sustained operation at 100%, but we built in redundancies. I'd say we have another 8 hours before we risk cascade failure. Understood. Keep me informed of any changes. The battle raged on. The Blackstar's hull began to show damage as attacks that the shields couldn't fully stop scored the armor. The crew worked with desperate efficiency, rotating shifts to keep everyone fresh, rerouting power to damaged systems, and maintaining the relentless pace of combat. At the 10-hour mark, Commander Webb announced, "Enemy forces reduced by 60%. They're breaking off the attack." "Negative," Kovac said, studying her tactical display. "They're regrouping, preparing for a final push." She was right. The remaining Cathari ships, still over 100 strong, gathered at the edge of the engagement zone. They had learned from their losses. This time, they would coordinate their attack, hitting the Blackstar from multiple angles simultaneously. "All power to weapons," Kovac ordered. "Athena, I need a firing solution that can hit the maximum number of targets in the first volley. We need to break their attack before they reach us." "Solution calculated," Athena's synthetic voice responded. "Probability of success, 68%. "I'll take those odds," Kovac said. "Helm, when I give the word, execute emergency burn directly toward their formation center. We're not waiting for them to come to us." Her officers stared at her. Park spoke first. "Captain, that's insane?" Kovac finished. "Yes, it is. But they expect us to defend. They expect us to fall back. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to charge straight into their teeth and show them that humans don't run from a fight." She gripped her armrests. "All crew, brace for combat maneuvers. Helm, execute. All weapons, fire at will." The USS Blackstar surged forward. The gravitational lances fired continuously, a barrage of space-time distortions that tore through the Cathari formation. The quantum fields expanded to maximum range. Missiles filled the space between the fleets. The enemy returned fire with everything they had. The blackstar's shields flared and buckled under the assault. Alarms blared across the ship. Damage reports flooded in. But the human vessel kept coming, kept firing, kept fighting. It was magnificent. It was terrible. It was war reduced to its purest form. When the two forces met, the Callus Nebula lit up with enough energy to be visible from neighboring systems. For 16 continuous hours, a single human ship held the line against an armada. And when the battle finally ended, when the last Cathari ship fled into the darkness, the USS Blackstar remained, damaged, scarred, but undefeated. Captain Kovacs sat in her chair, exhausted, as casualty reports came in. They had lost 47 crew members. 47 people who would never go home. The weight of command had never felt heavier, but they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won, and the galaxy was watching. The Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity for the first time in centuries. Representatives from every member species attended, either in person or via holographic projection. The usual debates and committee meetings had been suspended. There was only one topic that mattered: humanity and the USS Blackstar. Admiral Chen stood at the central podium, a position usually reserved for the High Chancellor. Mordain had yielded the floor without protest. The crystalline being understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and everyone needed to understand how and why. Members of the Council, Chen began, you have requested a full disclosure regarding human military capabilities and the construction of the USS Blackstar. I am authorized by the Earth government to provide that disclosure, within certain limits. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. 70 years ago, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel and made first contact with the Galactic Council. We were welcomed as a new species, granted observer status, and introduced to the wonders of galactic civilization. We were grateful. We learned much. The display zoomed in on various Council species technologies. You shared your knowledge freely: medical advances, agricultural techniques, cultural exchanges, but you will notice that military technology was not among the things openly shared. Ambassador Krell shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Several other representatives avoided eye contact. We understood, Chen continued. You saw us as primitives, barely past our own world wars. You worried that giving us advanced weapons would lead to disaster. Perhaps you were right to be cautious. But what you didn't understand is that humanity had already learned the lessons you were trying to teach us. She changed the display to show images from Earth's history. Wars, destruction, nuclear weapons. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We developed weapons capable of ending all life on our planet. We nearly used them several times. But we survived. And we learned. We learned that peace requires strength. We learned that good intentions without the power to enforce them mean nothing. And we learned that sometimes, the only way to stop evil is to be willing to do terrible things. The chamber was silent. Chen let that silence stretch before continuing. When we joined the galactic community, we made a decision. We would never allow humanity to be helpless again. We would never depend entirely on others for our survival. So while we participated in council activities and contributed to galactic society, we also invested heavily in our own defense. 20 years ago, we began the Blackstar project. We took the technology we had been given and built upon it. We took our understanding of physics and pushed it in directions the galaxy had not explored. Some of those directions were considered too dangerous, too destructive. We pursued them anyway because we knew that one day a threat would emerge that conventional forces could not stop. The display showed the USS Blackstar under construction. The Blackstar is not just a ship. It is a statement. It represents humanity's answer to existential threats. It was designed from the beginning to fight enemies that outnumber it, outgun it, and refuse to surrender. It was designed to win. Ambassador Theclon, who had been largely silent since his homeworld's salvation, spoke up. Admiral Chen, we are grateful for your intervention. The blackstar saved billions of lives, but many of us are troubled by the implications. The weapons your ship employs are unlike anything in our databases. Gravitational manipulation on that scale. Quantum field projectors. Nano-weapon systems. These are weapons that could destroy entire civilizations if misused. You're right, Chen said bluntly. They could. That's exactly why we kept them secret. The blackstar was built for defense, not conquest. But we understand your concern. You're afraid of us now. The admission created a ripple of reaction through the chamber. Some species shifted nervously. Others nodded in agreement. Let me be clear, Chen continued. Humanity has no interest in galactic domination. We simply refuse to be victims. The blackstar exists to protect not just Earth, but all peaceful species, from threats like the Cathari. High Chancellor Mordaine's structure brightened as he spoke. Noble words, Admiral. But history shows that power corrupts. How can we trust that humanity will not use this weapon against us? Chen met his gaze steadily. You can't. Just as we cannot fully trust that other species won't turn against us. Trust is earned through actions, not promises. All I can offer is transparency and a commitment to defend Council space against threats. What you do with that offer is up to you. Before the discussion could continue, alarms began sounding across the chamber. Multiple representatives received urgent messages simultaneously. Screens lit up with incoming data. Mordaine accessed the information, and his structure dimmed to near darkness. The Cathari have responded. Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements. They are redirecting their main reserve force. Intelligence estimates over 1,000 capital ships. Where are they headed? Krell demanded. There was a terrible pause before Mordaine answered. Earth. They're going directly for Earth. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives expressed horror. Others showed relief that the swarm was focusing on humanity rather than their own worlds. A few looked almost pleased at the prospect of seeing humanity humbled. Chen stood perfectly still at the podium, her face unreadable. She accessed her personal communicator and sent a coded message. Then, she addressed the council again, her voice cutting through the noise. Members of the council, this meeting is adjourned. I must return to Earth to coordinate our defense. But before I go, I want to make something clear. The Cathari are coming for my homeworld because we hurt them. We showed them they can be beaten. They want revenge, and they want to destroy the one thing they fear. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. This is your chance to see what humanity is really made of. Will we surrender? Will we run? Will we beg for mercy from an enemy that has shown none? Chen smiled, and there was something fierce in that expression. No. We will fight. And when this is over, when Earth still stands, and the Cathari swarm is broken, every species in this galaxy will know that humanity does not bow to tyrants. She left the podium without waiting for dismissal, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. Light years away, aboard the USS Blackstar, Captain Kovac received the news of the Cathari Devourer fleet's movement. Her ship was still undergoing repairs in a remote system, its crew exhausted from weeks of continuous combat. According to standard military doctrine, they should return to Earth for refit and reinforcement. Kovac had no intention of following standard doctrine. Commander Webb, how long until we're combat ready? She asked. Webb consulted his displays. Engineering says 48 hours minimum. We have holes in our armor. 2 gravitational lance emitters need recalibration, and our quantum field generators are running at 70% efficiency. Give me 24 hours, Kovac said. I want weapons at full capacity. Everything else is secondary. Captain, Even if we repair the weapons, we can't fight 1,000 ships, Park protested. We barely survived against 300. Kovac turned to face her bridge crew. They looked exhausted, frightened, and determined in equal measure. These were the people she had trained with, fought alongside, and bled with. She owed them honesty. You're right. We can't fight 1,000 ships in direct combat, so we won't. Instead, we're going to hunt them. She brought up a star chart showing the Devourer fleet's projected route to Earth. They have to travel through uncharted space to reach Sol. No inhabited systems. No resupply points. Just empty void. That means they're vulnerable to harassment tactics. Webb caught on quickly. Hit-and-run attacks. Strike their supply lines and force them to spread out looking for us. Exactly, Kovac confirmed. We can't destroy 1,000 ships, but we can delay them. We can make them paranoid. We can buy time for Earth to prepare its defenses. Every day we keep them from reaching Sol is another day for our people to evacuate civilians and deploy the planetary shields. What about the blackstar? Okonkwo asked. The ship is already damaged. Pushing the systems this hard could lead to catastrophic failure. Kovac nodded slowly. I know. But this is what we trained for. This is why the blackstar was built. Not to fight safe battles, but to do whatever it takes to protect our home. She looked at each of them in turn. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. This mission is volunteer only. If you want to transfer off, I'll arrange transport back to Earth. No one will think less of you. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Park spoke first. With respect, Captain, that's a stupid offer. We're not leaving, Webb nodded. The blackstar is our ship. Earth is our home. Where else would we be? One by one, every officer on the bridge affirmed their commitment. Kovac felt a surge of pride mixed with sadness. These people were going to follow her into what might be an impossible fight. She would do everything in her power to bring them home alive. Very well, she said. Helm, plot a course to intercept the Devourer fleet's projected route. Best speed as soon as repairs are complete. Weapons. I want targeting solutions prepared for maximum impact with minimum exposure. Engineering. Get creative with our power distribution. We're going to need every advantage we can get. As the crew moved to execute her orders, Kovac returned to her command chair. She pulled up a personal message screen and composed a short note to her family back on Earth. She told them she loved them. She told them to be proud. She told them not to worry. She didn't tell them that she expected this to be the last message they would receive from her. The USS Blackstar, damaged but unbowed, turned toward its destiny. Behind it, a trail of destroyed Cathari ships marked its passage through the galaxy. Ahead, an enemy force unlike any it had faced before moved toward humanity's homeworld. Captain Sarah Kovac set her jaw and prepared for the fight of her life. The Cathari Devourer fleet moved through the darkness like a swarm of locusts. 1,000 capital ships, each carrying thousands of smaller craft. It was the largest military force the swarm had deployed in 2 centuries. The Overmind itself commanded from a massive bioconstruct at the fleet's center. A moon-sized vessel that pulsed with the collective consciousness of billions of absorbed minds. The humans would be made an example. Their world would be consumed utterly. That was the plan. Then the attacks began. The first strike came 30 hours into the fleet's journey. A Cathari supply convoy vanished from the HiveMind network. When scouts investigated, they found only debris and the strange energy signatures the humans called gravitational distortion. 8 ships gone in minutes. The Overmind ordered increased vigilance. The fleet tightened its formation. Security patrols were doubled. 6 hours later, another attack. This time, a battle group on the fleet's outer edge reported contact with the human vessel. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. By the time reinforcements arrived, 17 ships were destroyed, and the Blackstar had vanished into faster-than-light speeds. The pattern continued. For 3 weeks, Captain Kovac and her crew stalked the Devourer fleet, like a predator hunting prey far larger than itself. They struck at stragglers. They ambushed scout groups. They targeted supply vessels and command ships. The attacks never lasted long. The blackstar would appear, unleash devastating firepower, and disappear before the Cathari could coordinate an effective response. It was exhausting work. The crew operated in shifts, barely sleeping, constantly repairing damage from near misses and overheated systems. The blackstar's hull was covered in scorch marks and patched armor. 2 of the 3 gravitational lance emitters had been damaged and repaired so many times that Chief Engineer Okonkwo couldn't guarantee they wouldn't explode during firing. But they kept fighting. Another supply convoy destroyed, Webb reported during one of their brief respite periods. That's the 6th one this week. The fleet's logistics are in chaos. Kovac studied the tactical display, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The Overmind is adapting. It's pulling the fleet into a tighter formation, reducing the number of vulnerable targets. We're running out of easy hits. Captain, we've delayed them for 3 weeks, Park said. Earth's defenses should be ready by now. We could fall back, link up with the home fleet. Negative. As long as we're out here, the Cathari have to worry about us. They have to dedicate resources to protecting their flanks. The moment we leave, they'll accelerate to maximum speed and reach Earth in days instead of weeks. She zoomed out on the display, showing the vast distance they had covered. Besides, we're not done yet. Intelligence reports indicate the Overmind itself is with the fleet. If we can damage or destroy it, we might fragment the entire swarm. Webb looked at her with concern. Captain, that's a suicide mission. The Overmind's bioship is at the center of their formation, surrounded by hundreds of capital ships. We can't fight through that. We don't have to fight through it, Kovac said quietly. We just have to survive long enough to deliver the payload. She pulled up classified schematics that even most of her senior staff hadn't seen. The Blackstar's main reactor cores. They're designed to fail safely under normal circumstances. But with the right modifications, we can overload the containment fields and create a controlled singularity collapse. It would release enough energy to devastate everything within a light-second radius. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what she was suggesting. You're talking about turning the Blackstar into a bomb, Okonkwo said slowly. Captain, that would destroy the ship. Destroy us. I know, Kovac said. That's why I'm not ordering it. If we can't stop the fleet any other way, if Earth is about to fall, we have one last card to play. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the ship. Contact! Park shouted. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. We've been found. The view screen showed Cathari vessels appearing all around them. Dozens of ships. Then hundreds. They had been waiting, predicting the Blackstar's attack pattern and setting a trap. Evasive maneuvers, Kovac ordered. All weapons, fire at will. The Blackstar surged forward, its gravitational lances carving through the nearest enemies. But this time, the Cathari didn't retreat. They closed in from all sides, accepting losses to get closer. The human ship's quantum fields glowed continuously, disintegrating incoming fire. But there was too much of it. Shields failing. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Webb reported. Keep firing, Kovac commanded. Helm. Plot a jump to FTL. Any vector that gets us out of here. Negative, Captain, Park said, her voice strained. They're using gravitational inhibitors. We can't enter FTL until we're clear of the interference. The battle became desperate. The Blackstar fought with everything it had, but the Cathari kept coming. Damage reports flooded in. Systems failed. Crew members died at their stations. The ship, that had seemed invincible, was being torn apart. Captain, we're being hailed, the communications officer reported. It's the Overmind. Put it through, Kovac said, blood running down her face from a head wound. The terrible chorus of voices filled the bridge. Human captain, you have fought well. You have cost us much. But you are defeated. Surrender your vessel, and join the swarm. Your knowledge will be preserved. Your species will live on through us. Kovac wiped the blood from her eyes and smiled. The thing about humans, Overmind, is that we're really bad at surrendering. We tend to do stupid things when cornered. She turned to Okonkwo. Chief. Initiate reactor overload. Full containment collapse. 5-minute timer. Why? Aye, Captain. Okonkwo said without hesitation. The Overmind's voice changed, becoming more focused. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Showing you that some species would rather die than be consumed, Kovac replied. Helm. Maximum combat speed. Take us directly toward the Overmind's bioship. The blackstar, battered and burning, accelerated toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Cathari ships tried to block its path, but the human vessel smashed through them, no longer concerned with taking damage. It was a missile now, guided by human will and desperation. 4 minutes to singularity collapse, Okonkwo announced calmly. The Overmind's vessel tried to move, but the bioship was massive and slow. The Devourer fleet moved to intercept the blackstar. Hundreds of ships converging on the human vessel. Hull integrity at 15%, Webb reported. We're coming apart. Just a little farther, Kovac whispered. 3 minutes. The distance closed. 2 light seconds. 1 light second. The Cathari fire intensified, hammering the blackstar from all directions. Entire sections of the ship were open to space. Half the crew was dead or dying. 2 minutes. We're not going to make it, Park said. The ship is breaking up. Kovac gripped her armrests. Yes, we will. Because we're human, and humans don't quit. 1 minute. Then, something impossible happened. On the view screen, new contacts appeared. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light speeds. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. The signatures were familiar. Human ships. The entire Earth Defense Fleet had arrived. This is Admiral Chen aboard the ESS Yamato. A voice crackled over communications. All Earth forces. Engage the enemy. Blackstar. We're coming to get you out of there. The Earth Fleet, smaller and less advanced than the Blackstar, but no less determined, crashed into the Cathari formation. They fired missiles and energy weapons, creating chaos and drawing fire away from the dying human vessel. 30 seconds to singularity collapse, Okonkwo said. Captain, if we don't abort now, we'll take the fleet with us, Webb said urgently. Kovac watched the battle unfold. The Earth fleet was outnumbered, but they were fighting with the same desperate courage that had defined humanity throughout its history. They had come to save the Blackstar, to save her crew. She made her decision. Abort reactor overload, she ordered. Chief, emergency shutdown. Everything we have left. Aye, Captain. Okonkwo's hands flew across his controls. Containment fields re-establishing. Reactor temperatures dropping. We're going to make it! The Blackstar's forward momentum carried it past the Overmind's bioship, missing by less than a kilometer. The human vessel was dead in space now, its engines destroyed, but it had survived. The Cathari Devourer fleet found itself surrounded. The Blackstar behind them, the Earth fleet ahead, and reinforcements arriving from Galactic Council space. Species that had been silent during humanity's struggle now came to their aid, inspired by the courage they had witnessed. The Overmind calculated its odds and found them unacceptable. For the first time in its 3,000-year existence, it gave an order it had never given before. Retreat. The Cathari swarm broke apart. Ships fled in all directions, the hive mind fragmenting under the strain. Without central coordination, they were no longer an unstoppable force. They were refugees, scattered and broken. The war wasn't over. But the tide had turned. Captain Sarah Kovac sat in her damaged command chair, surrounded by her surviving crew, and allowed herself to cry. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had held the line long enough for help to arrive. Months later, after the blackstar had been repaired and returned to Earth, Kovac stood in the memorial garden dedicated to those lost in the war. 47 names from her crew, thousands more from other ships and worlds. The price of survival had been high. Admiral Chen found her there. "Captain, the Council has awarded you the Star of Unity, their highest honor. You're a hero across 50 worlds." Kovac shook her head. "I'm not a hero, Admiral. I just did what needed to be done. That's what heroes are, Sarah. People who do what needs to be done, even when it's impossible." They stood in silence for a moment before Chen spoke again. "The Black Star is being recommissioned. 2 sister ships are under construction. The galaxy wants to know, will you command her again?" Kovac looked up at the stars, thinking about all they represented. Wonder and danger, beauty and horror, peace and war. "Yes," she said finally. "Someone needs to stand guard. Someone needs to be ready for the next threat. It might as well be us, because that was what humanity had learned. Peace was precious, but peace without the strength to defend. It was just a pleasant dream before the nightmare arrived." The USS Blackstar and her trail of annihilation had proven that sometimes the only way to stop monsters was to become something they feared. Not conquerors, not tyrants, but guardians, willing to walk through fire, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy would remember the name Blackstar. And any species considering aggression against the innocent would remember what happened to those who challenged humanity's resolve. They would remember, and they would think twice, and perhaps, in that fear, there would be peace.